Hello and welcome to Scoping Out Tools, and today I'm going to be talking about how I made this hourglass. It's taken me several weekends and because I've only got limited time, but I will be showing various bits along the way and also some of the mistakes that easily could have meant that I went for brand new wood each time, but I just kept going, and what came out of it, it's actually pretty alright. There's still some modifications to do on it, which will come at a later video. But for now, let's see how I made this to start with. These were the dimensions that I had put on last time. So I had 160 in depth. I need to actually check all these measurements because I don't know if it's 160 to have this little bit in between. So that it's going to be a 50mm diameter with 5mm depth to hold it in. So I'd have 50mm here, and this was the scrap piece that I had used initially to actually do it. Now there was a problem, was because it didn't fit perfectly. So as you can see, this is where I did a lot of test marks on it there. So this piece of wood, I think is about the right thickness, but I have this piece of wood here for it. So I need to decide, so you can see I've got a bit of play to actually see how I want to actually do this. Now when it comes to the spindle part, and this is a piece of cedar, I believe it is. I've got 3 pieces identical, so it's alright if I go over it. I've got to obviously have it so that it can fit in. Now, there's a few ways that I'm thinking that I could actually maybe do this. One way is just a spindle with a piece of wood here, here, and then the hourglass. You can tell I'm a perfect drawer, and there'll also be another one here, right? So one part is to actually put a screw in through here, countersink it so that it's in the middle, and then stick it there. The trouble is I've got to have everything to the same length. The other part of me is actually wondering if to actually use make the spindle so it's tapered. So it's going to be like this. Now I still need to make everything the right length, but this way this would then sit inside it. So if I just do it on this side, and then I'd have a choice of actually just gluing this in to actually hold it in the place. Then I don't actually have the screws on that side. Now, what I've got to also decide is the size. So obviously this once spun, at the minimum it's going to be the, let's just check. So at minimum it's going to be 26.52. So let's say I'm roughly going to make it 25 mils or 24 mils, let's say. Right. So if that's 24 that side, that's 24 that side, it's not going to go directly to the edge of it. So I might want to have it a little bit further in. So this, I suppose, isn't too bad. But I do need to pay attention to how much the hourglass comes out. So it's going to be like that, that, that. I'll draw this up more in a better way. I also probably want to taper this out so that it sits in a little bit better, or make this a bit wider so that it sits on this base. Then once I know the height of it, once I set the base, I can then work out the height of this part here. Anyway, that's the plan. Let's see if I can make it into, bring it into fruition. I've obviously got to make two pieces that are going to be identical in squareness for this. So that's a first step. Okay, so I've just had a look at this again, and it is actually not that bad an approximation. So it does sit on it nicely. I've got to then put another part on it, but for now I'm just wanting to actually mark where I'm going to make the cuts. I haven't decided how I'm going to cut yet, so I'm just again eyeballing it, and I'm making it look so it's roughly maybe about 5 mils or so in, and I've just now taken, this is the first time I've got the vertex out, but I've just taken this part and I've just adjusted it so it's roughly about 5 mil on the other side as well, so that if I now mark it, and let's see if I can actually do this. So sure there's an easy way to do it, but and for now that'll do. Is that going straight? I'll check it later, but now if I just mark it this way and just do similar, I have actually got the mark just here, right? But I have a feeling it's not perfectly straight, and it could just be because of this. So I'm just going to give a little bit of extra shifty so that instead of cutting on the line, I'm actually a little bit further across it. So got an extra couple of mils there. Yeah, and as a result I can see the line on both sides. So let's just clamp that back in place. So I think the word shifty is coming from Scotland, at least. Obviously, when I was a kid, shifty would be sort of to move something a little amount. Now, looking back on this, I think I probably should have actually hand cut these. I need to really just check the squareness of the blade as well, and it's possibly that shifty actually took it off square. It was only out by about 1 or 2 degrees, but it was a very annoying 1 or 2 degrees, and so it took me a while to actually get it sorted. I tried planing, I tried, uh, and eventually I actually used the router table, which I didn't film. So I squared up both the top section and the bottom section. One of the other bits that I'm not a massive fan about the miter saw is you do actually need to have it quite far forward because it's sliding. And yeah, I probably don't cut enough with it for it to really sort it type thing. I might have tried it with, or probably should have tried it with the bandsaw, but I might have had to change my blades for it because it was a softer blade. Anyway, now back to
the main part where I'm actually going to be using the router for the holes.
So a little time has passed and I need to attach this to the base, put the hole in it, and for that I had to buy some router bits. And the router bits that I got were just £10 off Amazon of different sizes. So hopefully I can actually complete this project today. Let's go.
And this comes to another mistake that I made. So I had put a little bit of the scrap wood of the same thickness underneath so I could actually have a flat point. I used the uh, camera holder to actually hold the vacuum where it was. It was positioned at the wrong bit, so you'll see that when I start cutting, it starts spraying towards me. I am wearing the dust mask and actually using the face protector as well. But as I was moving it, it actually shifted the template. So I decided that I had to come up with another method, which I'm just about to tell you when I actually show you how bad a mistake I actually made on it. It was salvageable though, and I was glad that I could just keep going.
Well, the first one is, you can see I've messed up the base slightly. This should sit on it here. It sits on it fine. So I can still use it, and I think I will carry on using it. Let's see if I can do a better job with the second one. This one I might actually see if I can do it just by sight, which I think might be easier to do. But let's see what happens.
And doing it freehand was a whole lot easier. Um, so what I did was the first point was I used the plunger to set the depth, go over to the side, and then just get it roughly in the right position. And then transferred it over to the small angled one because my single one actually is located in the router table. So, but by doing this, I was able to sight it fairly easily and get a much nicer trimmed finish, which hopefully you'll see when you see the other various glue ups type thing. And it felt relatively safe as well, which I'm fairly happy with. Again, I need to work out a little bit on how the dust is getting done. Okay, so I'm using a Japanese pull saw for this. I've done one already, so I've marked it up. I'm just pulling the draw first, and then what I decided to do, rather than cut all the way through on one side, I decided to actually just turn it each time, just so that I could keep it roughly straight. Now that this end is going to go um, onto the live center part of the drive of the lathe. So in some ways, it doesn't matter as much if it is a straight, but of course, this is going to be going inside the piece of wood. And once I get it down, that's me got the first part. Now I've got a better idea of what I'm doing, so I'm just going to cut the next piece, and it was a lot easier to do it. So I'm giving it a push to actually get a mark done, and then just slicing through it. It's a nice sound sawing, so I just thought I'd keep the sound in the background. That's one good thing about not always using power tools. It's a lot quieter to work with it, but yeah. So I'm going to be sending that over to the lathe, and I forgot to record the first spindle that I cut, but basically you'll see me using the first angle, the first spindle as a template for. I'm just actually marking where the borders of the curves are, and with the pencil, so that I can actually then get everything in the right position. And then this is me taking it down to 12.7, which is going to be the router hole that will attach it into the bit of wood. Then I'm just going to be getting the spindle gouge and just trimming it down, and I'm just using the spindle here, but I do actually switch over to the skew. So it wasn't the perfect dimensions, the curves were not exactly right, but I think it fairly actually matched on what I was expecting. So I've now actually got the skew out, and just adjusting the tool rest just to be similar. Now, I might not have the exact skew technique, because basically I've just taught myself in how to use it, which is not 100%. And just going back to the little spindle, just giving it a try and then comparing it against the previous spindle and trying to match it, but I was never going to get it 100%. I do a lot of stuff by feel, and that can mean that there's a little bit of variance with everything that I actually do. And now I'm just taking the other side to the 12.7, and then that allows me to actually match the curve to what it was before. And I was fairly happy with that, so now I'm just actually going on to the sanding part of it. So just removing any little tool marks. I apologise for my voice changing, because I got the cold over the weekend. And yeah, so just the sanding it off, and I did want to just check it a few different times, and I was fairly happy with it. Then I just removed it using the Japanese pull saw over at the side. I can't remember if I even show that, but blink and you miss it. But you'll see that I just give it a little cut and turn.
I've just had about 2 hours of turning, and these are the resulting pieces. Not 100% perfect, but for the purposes of my hourglass, I'm going to go for it. I had one break, and you can actually see it's from the center of the material, so that's why it's broken. So it wasn't a good piece of wood, but luckily I had spare, and so now I've got to just maybe give these a bit of an oil, and then see about, but first I might do a dry fit of the hourglass. Time wise, I might have to wait till next weekend, unfortunately. So this is actually my setup for cutting the places where my pillars are going to go in the hourglass. So what I've done, I've clamped the router with to two pieces of wood, which are going to be my stop blocks for positioning of my workpiece. I've put it up with 5mm, five playing cards, to make it a little bit easier to remove it. And then so I'm going to cut, rotate, cut, and do that all four sides. Now lining it up, I did 20 mils on each corner to actually get where I'm positioning the center. But as my router bit is 12.7, then what I've done is that's half inch, so I've done a quarter of an inch away from the center point. So I'm mixing metric and imperial, and then what I did was, this is unplugged. What I did was I lined up the blade to make sure that that was the outer point here, and here just by coming down for it. So let's see if I mess this up completely.
Okay, so I've now got the thing in position, and there was a little bit of movement. I should have actually clamped down a little bit harder, and you will see that the piece did move ever so slightly. Now, so this is just the concept of it, though. So you can see I'm just digging in. There was a depth stop. I found it was actually stopping before the depth stop, and it's because the center point was actually not cutting. So I actually repositioned it, and I took it out, drilled into the center using just a standard drill, and then that meant that it could go in unobstructed because then it's the sharp bits was doing all the cutting. And there, as I say, this I think was a good one. Whereas one of the other sides, there's a little bit of movement, and that little bit of movement meant that it caused um, a little bit of mismatch, and as a result, luckily it was all under the spindle, so it wasn't visible.
And this is the mock-up of it now, or mock-up but dry fit. I need to just trim a couple little bits at the edge, and then that should hopefully take the little bit of looseness between it. But it works, and the legs don't actually look that bad. So what I want to do now is just maybe get my whittle knife and just trim off a little bit so that they'll sit in a little bit better, and then do a stain before I do a glue up. And now I'm using every available space to give me a nice clean surface, and this clean surface is going to be the bin, and I've oiled all the parts so that they have got some sort of nourishment, and I might see about putting a finishing wax on afterwards, but I need to actually check. I've got friction wax. I don't know if that wax would be actually useful for it. I'm less worried about that as the oil seems to actually do quite a good job. And I am just actually waiting for this now to set, and I need to then just double check that everything is in the right position, but it seems to be nice and secure. I had to give it a little twist to make sure it fits, but I am fairly happy with that. And let's just wait till it fully sets, and I can go from there. And that was how I made this. So my first real project, I know I've done some other stuff, but the first one that I've sort of went, oh, that's nice for the mantelpiece, that combined a bit of turning and a bit of routing. It obviously wouldn't be something that I would be selling or anything like that. I'm far, far away from that. But I quite like that I pointed all the grains at 45 degrees. I probably would do everything freehand for getting the right piece, but I am going to embrace this little mark, and probably, is it kintsugi? Kintsugi, the Japanese, um, where they put the gold and that on it. I'll probably be doing something similar for that here. I do have one more of these hourglasses available. I picked this up for about £5 or £8 at a local framing store. The other one was definitely about £4 because it's got green sand in it. But where I got this wood, I'm gonna probably go back there because they were nice and friendly. Fairly happy with it. So if you're interested in these types of projects, let me know. Um, I'm not gonna go into plans on how to do it because I don't even have a plan myself. Um, but I can talk about my thinking around stuff. But there's far, far more accomplished people on here that have got really great skills. If I do stuff that is belonging to somebody else's stuff, like a technique that I've learnt from it, I'll try and remember to point them you in that direction, who will give by far better explanations. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.